Alhamdulillah Rabbi Alameen. Alhamdulillah Nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa natubu ilayhi wa na'udhu billahi min shariri anfusina wa sayyiati a'malina. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. I seek refuge in Allah, we seek refuge in Allah from the rejected enemy Shaitan. With Allah's name, the most merciful benefactor, the most merciful redeemer. All praise is due to Allah alone. We praise Him. We seek help from Him. We ask forgiveness from Him. We repent to Him. And we seek refuge in Him from our own weaknesses, our own bad deeds. I bear witness there is no deity worthy, there is no deity except Allah alone. He has no partners, no associate. And I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his messenger to mankind. Today, we're looking at ayah in the Quran where Allah is telling us that, in fact, it's almost the whole surah where Allah is telling us that He's going to cause the people to spring come out of another ummah, and they're going to change, help the world. In defining that, He uses an ayah when He's talking about Isa. He says Isa and his mother Miriam. He is a sign. And getting to this, we have to, ourselves, we have to think in terms of rational thinking, factual thinking, being different from fictional thinking. The world primarily at present is in a world of fantasy, is in a world of fictional thinking. And it doesn't even make any difference what religion you are. It has no bearing on that. But what it does say that Allah tells us in the Quran that that time is going to come. Now, in reading Quran, we must realize that Allah revealed Quran at a time that had not yet come. He revealed it at a time, about a time that had not yet come. He talked about the past in terms of hadiths, in terms of stories of the past, to express the present that the Quran was revealed in, but it was talking about time to come. It was talking about the future. The Quran was revealed to explain what is to come. It wasn't revealed to tell us what actually happened in the past, only in the sense of reference, that we had something to reference to. Because you can't go back and relive the past, so it's only sense of reference. And those who received the Quran in that presence was obligated to maintain it in the state in which Allah had revealed it to them. So when Prophet Muhammad ﷺ received Quran, he received it at a time that was to preserve it, so that the future would be able to be talked about, seen, and understood. Now that future is the time we're living in. We're living in the future of what the Quran had revealed. We're not living in the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam 1400 years ago. We're not living in the time of Musa, nor are we living in the time of Ibrahim. We're living in the time that the Quran referred to as the time to come. The day when all truth will come to light. That's the time we're living in. If you're living and you're looking for a prophet to come off the mountain somewhere, you're in the wrong time. If you're expecting somebody to come and stand, put one foot on the land and one foot in the ocean, and with one eye in the middle of their head, you're living in the wrong fantasy. That's a fictitious understanding of some kind of reality that you have to get some kind of a real understanding about. Now, I'm going to just talk a little about the importance of that and why that is so valuable in this time. Allah says in the Quran, He says to instructed the angels to say to Miriam, the angel said, "O Miriam, Allah has given you glad tidings of a word from Him." Now it's talking about that Allah has given Miriam glad tidings. The angels are saying this. And His name will be Christ Jesus, the son of Miriam, held in the nearness to Allah. So the Malaika, and we go over many, many times over what the meaning of Malaika is here. And those of you who have been following the teachings and understanding of Imam Muhammad, I'm sure you have a grasp on the reality, a grasp on the realness of what a Malaika is, angel. Angel is primarily a Greek word, which means messenger. Malaika means those that enforce what they were told to do. Those that enforce what they were told to do. And it doesn't have to be in our imagination in the sense of the way we think about fantasy. See, man, as he evolved, had to deal with a lot of fantasy because he couldn't understand the reality in which he lived in. He couldn't understand the thunder and lightning. He couldn't understand the terrain of the land. He couldn't understand any of that. So he had to make up how this existed. He had to make up what was the purpose of this. And many times what they were doing, they were putting fantasy tied to reality in order that the times would make sense to them. So we get a lot of fantasy passed down the line of time. And when Allah revealed Quran, it was the time that Allah says fantasy stops here. After Quran, no more fantasy. After Quran, no more accepting the fictitious as being real. After Quran, everything had to make sense in the terms of coming to a logical conclusion. Once man apply his intellect, his logic, out of his base nature. Now, much of what man has come into now, we know it has been a deception brought about by a spirit called Shaitan, Iblis. And Allah gave Iblis, Shaitan, the right to change everything except he could not touch the innocent. He could not touch his devotee, Allah's devotee. See, Allah's devotee, I know a lot of people may give an understanding to that a little different, but Allah's devotee is talking about the innocent nature in the human being. Allah's devotee is talking about the innocent nature in the human being. Allah says to Shaitan, you can change anything you want, you can do anything you want to man, you can work with man's rationale, you can influence his rational thinking, you can make him think something is real and is not real, and you can take his emotions, you can take him by his emotions and drag him all over the earth if you want to. Make him get so emotional about a thing that he'll give his life for it. Make him give up his wealth, give up his anything for the emotion. And you can take man's morals. If he applied the rationale you give him to his moral state, his morals then become corrupted. You can do that. But what you cannot do and will not do, and I will not allow you to even think of doing it, is corrupting man's innocent nature. That's the nature in which man was created, his dina fitra, his innocent nature. So Shaitan can't corrupt our innocent nature, but he can influence us to go wrong ourselves. See, we have to do it ourselves because he can't do it. He cannot do it. He cannot make your innocent nature wicked. He cannot make your innocent nature Shaitan. He cannot make your innocent nature any of those things. All he can do is influence. And he says that in the Quran. He says, I have no power over them. Meaning I can't shape their nature. I have no power over them. I just have the power of influence. You see? That's the logic of it all. So Shaitan can't shape, he can't shape, he can't twist, he can't do anything to our innocent nature. And as long as we follow that innocent nature, he can't even influence us. The moment we stop following the innocent nature in which Allah has created us, Shaitan could begin to whisper. He can begin to say, well, look, let's go over here. Let's try this. Let's try that. And that's when we get in trouble. But that innocent nature still exists in the world. All human beings have that innocent nature in them. Now, we know that most don't follow it. Most have been led to follow corruption. And this is why Allah says again in the Quran, when Shaitan came to them in the garden, Allah says, go not near that tree. Because if you go near that tree, it will corrupt you. See, so Shaitan came back and started to influence man and says, the reason he don't want you to go to that tree because it'll make you like gods. It'll give you everlasting life. Influence. And he's talking to the innocent nature of the human being. The Adam that you read about in the Quran is the innocent nature. The innocent nature that Shaitan is trying to influence in every human being. And he has done a job. Because it was so tough that the whole world, no matter whether you're Buddhist, whether you're Shinto or Muslim or Jew, Christian, Shaitan has been influencing all of it. It says that he will stand in the Sirata Mustaqim. He's going to stand in the Sirata Mustaqim to influence the innocent nature of the human being. That's all religions. There's no religion you can get into that can avoid that. Because he's going to be in the Sirata Mustaqim. The hope for man was that Allah would rescue man. The hope of man is that Allah will rescue man and guide man. This is why Ibrahim says, when he says, what did he say? Kul inna, kul inna, oh, Hudani, Rab, guided by the Lord. Say, your Lord, my Lord has guided me. Ila sarata mustaqim, to a way that is straight. Dina, he said, Dina, Kiyama, Millati Ibrahima Hanifa. To go a way that is straight, the religion of right, the same as Ibrahim, the path that Ibrahim went on. You see, so Allah is telling us that it is He that guides us. Even when we look at the story of Ibrahim, we must understand that Ibrahim didn't do it himself. Ibrahim, it gives us the understanding that Ibrahim used his rational mind to come to a conclusion, but it's clear that Allah says to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he revealed this ayah, to say that I have been guided, directed by my Lord to the way that is straight, to the religion of right, to the path by which Ibrahim, the upright one, the upright, Hanifa, upright. This is what we have to understand. Now, why is that so important now? It's where we must come to some understanding. It is so important today because we are living in a world that Allah is changing. It is Allah making the world new now. This is Allah. There's no more prophets are coming. This is Allah, Rabbi Alameen, Lord of all the systems of knowledge, the cherisher, sustainer of all systems of knowledge. Khalaqa insan, creator of man. He's making a new world as we speak. He's encouraging us to start thinking a new thinking, not thinking like the old world was thinking. The old world was influenced by Shaitan. To think everything is in terms of fantasies and fiction. We have to begin to apply our rational mind based on the logic in which Allah shows us in the Quran and in the creation. This is what He was telling us in the story of Ibrahim, that Ibrahim followed the logic of the creation. This is why when you read that story, you see that Allah talks about Ibrahim looking at the stars, the moon. He's telling us that he followed the logic of the natural creation. Shaitan can't shape the natural creation. The natural creation is what Ibrahim followed, and that's what brought him to Allah's doorstep, to Allah's understanding of a man. And we're at that time now. We're in that time in which we have to begin to rethink ourselves. We have to rethink the world. Values. New values have to come into existence. And we are the community, the ummah, to bring those values into existence. Our thinking has to change. You know, there's a story in the Quran. And we open with a comment about that story. But there's a story in the Quran where Allah talks about Isa and his mother Miriam. Now, when we think about this story, this hadith, when we think about it, we have to think about it in the context in which it's revealed to us. It is talking about, it was revealed 1400 years ago, and it's talking about a time before that time. It says that Allah had given instructions to the Malaika to instruct Miriam that she's going to have a word. The way it's put in Quran, kalama, word. And the word is going to be from Allah. But in getting us to understand it, it says a son. So we can understand that concept. So we can grab that concept. See, because we can't grab the concept if it's just left in that form, a word, because rationally, we weren't at that level. Man wasn't at that level to understand word meaning something other than a human being 1,400 years ago or even before. So it was put in the terms of a son. So it can be passed down to a time when man's understanding will grow, when man will evolve in his understanding to understand what these things are talking about. So it says that he will change the world in so many words. He had come to change the world. Make the world new. And then it says that so that the readers of the Quran at the time it was revealed would get to understand that this is of a time to come. It says, and he and his mother are a sign. A sign. Ayat. A sign. Ayatun. A sign. A sign. Meaning that what you see and what you hear here, that's not the reality. That is talking about the reality. When you go up to a street sign to say stop, and you in your car, do you park? Do you park? The sign doesn't suddenly say go. It says stop. And it still says stop when you stop there. But because you understand the meaning of that sign, you know the sign doesn't mean stop here forever. You know the sign means stop and make sure the traffic is clear before you proceed. Make sure the traffic is not coming one way or another, that it can interrupt you or you interrupt it. When you see it's clear, then move forward. That's the meaning of a sign. It's giving us direction. So what was he a sign of? He was a sign of Allah remaking the world. He was a sign of Allah changing the world in the logical, rational way. Not that one day you're going to come with a magic wand and boom, and everything's going to change. Suddenly you're going to be thinking something different than you're thinking now. Your name is no longer Rahman, or your name is no longer Shahid. Your name is no longer whatever. Your name now is this. Your name now is that. That's fantasy. And it's that kind of fantasy that the world has been put into. That suddenly it's going to happen. Suddenly to Allah is not suddenly to us. Suddenly to Allah is suddenly. To us it could be billions of years. It's beyond our comprehension. But it still happens suddenly for Allah. So the changing of the world is a natural process. The same as this world came into existence. This world came into existence over the years, and Allah says he's going to give man permission to build his own society, his own world. When he was talking to Shaitan, he said he'll give man that permission to build his own world, his own society, and he did. And Shaitan has the world corrupted in such a way that it serves his purposes. And all of the ones who buy into his scheme serve his purposes. Whether they call themselves rabbi, or whether they call themselves priest, or whether they call themselves imam. When they buy into the fantasy that Shaitan has put into this world, that they are accepting the concept and idea that Jesus was walking on water, when they accepting the idea that mountains are crumbling, when they're accepting the idea that these things that the camels are talking and the trees are talking and all those kinds of ideas, when they accept those ideas as a sense of reality, then they can easily be misled by a fantasy. But if they know that those concepts and symbols mean something like that sign, if they know those concepts mean something in real life, in real terms, Shaitan can't handle that. Shaitan cannot handle man thinking rationally according to his own moral consciousness. The one thing that Shaitan fears more than anything is man developing the spirit of human excellence. That's what Shaitan fears. Of man developing the spirit that's in us of human excellence. He can handle everything else. Because human excellence means that now you are following your moral consciousness. And according to the way Allah has everything. In fact, it is so much so that there's almost all kinds of words and symbols and signs to tell you if you're following your innocent nature, striving toward human excellence, you don't even have to read a book. What book did Ibrahim read? What book did Prophet Muhammad ﷺ read? He was in human excellence before the Quran was revealed to him. And his whole society said that this is a man who is most honest. This is an honest man. He has the best of character. That's before he got the Quran. What was he following? He was following his innocent nature. He was following his innocent nature that's created in each and every one of us. And that's what Shaitan fears more than anything. Man following that innocent nature. Now, it's not hard to get to that. This is nothing heavy. This is nothing way out. In fact, it's so simple. When you're thinking in terms of the symbols and signs that the world has been given, it may sound even a little strange to say follow your nature. Follow your innocent nature. You almost don't know what that means. And you almost don't trust it. How can I trust my innocent nature? And to think that thought, you have to almost say, Allah, who created my innocent nature, didn't know what he was doing. So I can't trust that. So you must think the thought that your innocent nature is what will guide you. And it's your moral consciousness that would help that innocent nature to strive toward human excellence. This is not rocket science. This is simple. The Quran is put in a way that any person can understand it, as long as they're sincere and willing to accept what the Quran, what Allah is revealing in the Quran as past, present, and future, and reality, and follow those realities to a logical conclusion, and don't get caught up in all of the mysteries that the world has developed. We're in a process right now. We just just had Thanksgiving, which I think is probably one of the better of the holidays that the Western world has, except for some other things that's connected to it, dealing with Turkey and so forth and so on. But I think it's one of the better in that it talks about Thanksgiving. Giving is one of the holidays where you're not looking to receive, looking to get presents and all that kind of stuff. It's one of those holidays where you're looking to give to the family, give to the families come together. A little better. But look what it ends on. It ends on today they call Black Friday. Now Thanksgiving is always on Thursday. So Black Friday is always that day after. Now most people don't even know what the Black Friday is even talking about. I've heard African Americans tell me that it means something about black people. No, it has nothing to do with African Americans. What it has to do with the commercial world is looking at its earnings in quarters, quarterly. And after it spends all its money trying to make money, those other 3 quarters, this is when they tally up on Black Friday. They figure from this point on, all this is profit going into Christmas. All this is profit making money now because they spent all the money, their liabilities and everything, those other 3 quarters. And boom, it ends now and they start, the books tally. And when you tally up books in the commercial world, if you're making money, if you're losing money, they call it the red. You're in the red. If you're making money, you're in the black. So they talk about this as being Black Friday for them. Now they talk about the people. Has nothing to do with the commercial world. Has nothing to do with the public. Other than they're going to get the public to give them some more money. But it has to do with their bookkeeping. Has to do with their bookkeeping. Now, from this point on, they got this world believing in spending money on things, some of them are so useless, it's almost unimaginable. They have the world to believe that a rock that they bring out the earth has some kind of mystical value. And this mystical value, if you give it to your wife or give it to your girlfriend, she would love you forever. They say the diamonds are a woman's best friend. It's a rock out the earth. But they shine it up and they cut it up and tell the world, you got to give your wife or girlfriend one of these or they ain't gonna love you at all. They'll never love you again. Diamonds are for lovers. They sell the idea of worthlessness and make it something. And then they go and take this idea of Kris Kringle, Christmas. You're going to be hearing a lot about that. And I know you have. Most of you all understand they've been here in the world while you heard this over and over. That Santa Claus, a man going to go around Christmas Eve and visit all of the houses in the world. One man gonna go around on Christmas Eve. Now he's gonna take the whole year to do it. He's gonna go around on Christmas Eve, the night before Christmas. And it won't be the day before Christmas, it's the night before Christmas. Sun has to go down, night before Christmas. And he's gonna go around to all of the houses in the world and leave presents. After he goes down a chimney, and many of the houses don't even have a chimney. I don't know how those people believe in that when they talk about the chimney thing, because some of them don't have chimneys. But he's going to go down the chimney and leave gifts for everybody. And they buy into it. Even when the mother and father know that every gift under that tree, they had to go out and get themselves. They know that. They know for a fact that they had to go out and get these for themselves, and yet they let that fallacy, they let that fantasy live in the mind of the children. Now, the children grow up with this thinking. Do you think that thinking just disappeared? Or you do think that that thinking just disappeared from you after you became an adult? No, it's still in your mind. It's still in your subconscious. Only they attack it differently now. They use the color of red to attract you because he had a red suit. They use the concepts, and they tie it into the concept of Jesus. Because if you believe that, then you must believe this. And they use all these concepts and ideas that they do not believe at all. Not one bit do they believe it. But they use it to gear the masses so they can get the money out the pocket of the masses with fantasy. With fantasy. And they got it so rough that if you don't get a gift for your children and under the tree, they feel like you hate them. Many Christians like this say, I grew up in a Christian household. I know what I'm talking about. So I'm not talking no, he told me this. No, no, he told me nothing. I was there. I know what that night feels like. I know what that morning feels like. I know what it was about. I understood the fantasy. And many of you have too. And this is something that permeates throughout the philosophy of the world. And it's not just this concept. This concept leads into Easter, which is another fantasy. And it leads into other concepts. And don't think for 1 minute that these concepts do not affect you because you're Muslim. I know there are Muslims who accepts the idea of having Christmas trees. And that's a Christian concept. Now, I take that back. That's not a Christian concept. That's a pagan concept. Those people who adopted Christianity adopted that idea from the pagans. There were people at one time who was pagans, and they accepted the idea of adorning trees with silver and gold to signify the coming of the new life, coming the greenery, signifying new life. Pagans did that, symbols. And Christians adopted that idea. You're living in a world of fantasy. Living in a world of fantasy. You remember that old movie, Matrix? That's what it's talking about. Living in a world of fantasy. But Allah says in Quran, He's going to change that world. He's going to change that world. And He's going to change it through you. Through you. You are the ummah, the balanced ummah, balanced. Meaning that you can determine fiction from reality. And you can then begin to employ the concepts and values of reality. You can change the values in which the world exists now. Gradually, you begin to change the world. Many of us accepted Islam and didn't really know that was part of the deal, that we were part of changing the world. We just thought all we had to do is put on a jalabiyah or kufi and let our beards grow and make our beards henna. This is henna what the Prophet wore, and cut off our pants and all those kinds of things, and make prayer and give us a little something for sadaqah and so forth. We thought that was Islam. Those are all symbols. Those are all symbols and traditions, traits to help solidify and keep in place real Islam, peace, Din al-Islam, the peace that only Allah has established in the creation. And it's that peace that you must harmonize with. When you come into the innocent nature in which Allah has created you and follow that through your human excellence, you're in that space. And Shaitan can't enter that space. Shaitan couldn't enter the space of the prophets. He couldn't enter the space of Messenger Prophet Muhammad. Oh, he tried. You read some of the stories, you see how Shaitan tried to influence Job and influence others, influence Esau. He said, I'll give you the world, to influence Prophet Muhammad, all of them. But he could not enter that space. Nor can he enter the space that you in. That's your heaven. That's your heaven in this reality. In this reality, in this dunya, that's your heaven. When you say, oh Allah, give us the best of this dunya, what do you think you're asking for? You're asking for the best condition. And the condition that we call heaven is the best condition. And the only way you can have that condition is have control over your emotions, over your intellect, and over your morals. And that will cause that state of human excellence. So with that, we want to take a short pause. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Values. There are personal values, cultural values, but we must begin to use those values to begin to reshape the society. By reshaping ourselves, we must be in the understanding that we are in charge of ourselves. The word maturity or mature, that's what it means. The one who's in charge of himself. When you talk about children, they're not in charge of themselves yet. They're still children. But once they become an adult is another word which means in charge of yourself. And in charge of yourself just don't mean now you can drive a car or you can vote. That's no word. It means that you're in charge of your behavior in terms of morality. Your moral behavior. You're in charge of your moral behavior. Your values, and your values shape that behavior. This is why reading the Quran is so important. Allah says, read the Quran daily. When you get up in the morning and make salat, read the Quran. Read the Quran. You don't have to sit there and read it all day. That's not going to make you any more righteous. Only thing going to make you righteous is what Allah says your best dress is what? Your conduct. But reading the Quran helps you shape that conduct. Read a couple segments or ayats every morning after salat. And what that does, it begins to shape you. It begins to shape your thinking. Because your thinking become more and more like what you're reading. And even if you don't understand some of the that what you're reading, if you're reading in Arabic or any other language, if you don't even understand what you're reading at the time, if you continue to read, you begin to get a feel for it. You begin to feel the nature of what you're reading. And as you begin to get that nature start entering into you, realize that nature is compatible with your nature, which is that innocent nature, and it begins to feel better and better and better, and you yearn for it more and more and more. Then that begins to change the behavior. Now we have a great challenge ahead of us, not just in our own behavior. We have a great challenge because this is the changing of the world. And I'm talking about mentality now, not talking about that person. And the world mind is going to fight not to be changed, struggle not to be changed. And the changing is taking place. It's going to happen. Allah says it's going to happen. And we're part of it. You take America, for example. America is a place of change. America is not an accident. America came into existence. America came into existence as a free country. And then it put together a constitution, and I do believe under Allah's guidance, I don't think they did it by themselves, then Allah guided it. That constitution protects the right of the individual. The right of the individual is protected, which means now you can follow your innocent nature. If your individual rights are not protected, you can't follow your innocent nature. Not if nobody don't want you to, because they just simply snatch you up and do what they want to do. But because it protects your rights as an individual, you can think of yourself as an individual and turn to God on your own. And not only that, it gives the freedom of religion. The freedom of religion. The government can't stop it. The government can't come in and say, okay, you can't worship as a Muslim. That's out. You can't worship as a Jew. That's out. The government can't do that. The government is commanded by the Constitution, commanded to enforce that. that wherever that is challenged, the freedom of religion is challenged, the government has to come and enforce it. The government, the laws, the courts, everybody has to come and say, they have the freedom of religion, so you got to let them have their religion. That's this kind of country. Now, this country was formed what we talking about, 1776, years ago. But look at what purpose all of that is for us today. Look at this. We can practice our religion, and our religion is a religion of change. Changing that which was, which corrupt that which is, to become that which is better. That's what our religion is. That's what it is. And when we understand that, then we can begin to work on that in our own selves and begin to work on ideas and concepts in this society. In brief, if we work on the concept in America, just in America, on the concept of obliterating racial, systematic racism in many different ways. It's much, we don't have the time to go into that now, but if we can work on that problem, we'll begin to eliminate the concept of racism and one race being superior over the other. And that's going to affect the whole world. Do you know when you fill out an application for a job, you put on it your name, okay, now they know your name. You put on it your age, now they know your age. You put on what nationality you are. So they have all that information there for a purpose of what? Discrimination. They begin to discriminate based on that information. They go through a filtering out process. And all those named that go over there. All those born there go there. All those of that nationality go there. So then they look at this stack. So all of those people have been discriminated against. One of the things that I believe we should really push for is to obliterate from all employment applications name, race, age, and sex. I would concede to the idea of leaving the Social Security number, but as a form of identity, but all of everything, you don't need it, unless you plan to discriminate. If we can work toward the discrimination impact, we will begin to change this world. Now, I know that might sound like a big job, and it is. We had to start small. We had to start in the local areas, neighborhoods, talking to people about it. Let's put forth a movement to do this. Let's start the movement to all employment applications. If you're employed for a job, that job application can have nothing on it to discriminate. They can ask you your life experience or your experience as what you have relative to that job, but they should not be allowed to determine your sex, your race, your age, or your name. There's no need for it. Because all they want is that you can do the job. That's all they need to know. So with that, we just want to keep in mind, that's just one idea. There's many, many, many ideas. That's, we want to keep in mind the power we have to change. We're in a time of change. We are the people of change. Let's not be afraid of change. Let's embrace change. That's what Islam gives us the privilege to do. Change the world. So we ask Allah to bless us. Rabbina atina fid dunya hasanatan wal akhirati hasanatan wa qina adhaban nar. Oh Allah, give us the best of this world and of the hereafter, and protect us from the fire. Ameen. Iqamatu salat.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, Hayya ala salah, Hayya ala falah, Kaqamatu salah, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah.